Good morning, everybody. How wonderful to see you here, and welcome to the 2016 Business and Climate Summit. Welcome to the historic Guildhall. Please admire the beautiful statues and pictures you see around the place. It's got masses of history. There are lots of history books to buy in the shop downstairs. And now I've got your attention. May I welcome you very warmly to the City of London and to this Business and Climate Summit. As you are very well aware, ructions are shaping the global economy as we speak, not only in relation to last week's referendum here in the UK, but also in response to one of the defining issues of the 21st century, our environment. The commitment to the 2-degree ceiling reached at Paris last year was truly historic and represented a challenge not only to policymakers, but to financiers, industrialists, investors, and insurers. I'll move that away slightly. In fact, to all of us here today involved in either finance or business, there is a challenge out there which we are to meet. We've been charged with undertaking the heavy lifting that is necessary to meet or even beat global carbon budgets. And that's what today is all about. So, but on behalf of the City of London Corporation, which runs the Square Mile, the financial centre, I'm therefore delighted to welcome you here to Guildhall and to emphasise that the process of better connecting growth and profit with environmental prudence is well underway. Indeed, here in the City of London, we have witnessed a remarkable rise, particularly in green finance in the recent years. This is a sector expressly committed to reducing emissions and raising resource efficiency, and which has obtained political and regulatory support worldwide. You'll hear more about the implications of green finance and the work of the City of London's Green Finance Initiative during tomorrow's discussion. But to begin with, let me say one thing, and that is that London, and indeed the wider UK's commitment to a low-carbon transition and to the development of deep and liquid green capital markets is undimmed. We are very keen to support this sector. We in the City look forward to continued political, regulatory and industry support for what is fast becoming for us a strategic sector, in fact for the finance industry worldwide. We'll continue to engage closely with partners both on the continent and further afield, particularly in China and India. And why? Because green products constitute one of the world's fastest growing asset classes and represent the cutting edge of 21st century capital markets. And come what may on the political front, we will continue both to promote and strengthen the sector's further development and to uphold the central theme of this summit, working together to deliver real climate action throughout 2016 and beyond. So there you've heard a strong statement of intent. Now we just have to make it happen. Public authorities, of course, have a crucial role to play in setting the agenda. They can raise public awareness, and as we saw in Paris, they can build international consensus very effectively. But they can't, on their own, spearhead the transition towards a more sustainable, low-carbon economy. Rather, the success or failure of these efforts will lie with investors, with those individuals and institutions who are willing to back new technologies and infrastructure projects, who are going to create carbon-conscious portfolios, who are going to green their supply chains, and to build sufficiently resilient markets for accessing climate-aligned products and services. Post-Paris, these are some of the most pressing challenges facing the industry, and we will hear shortly from some of the world's premier thought leaders on precisely what the Paris Agreement means for businesses, the contributions we all might make, and the actions that could be taken to bend the curve below 2 degrees. Away from the recent tumult, therefore, today's discussions provide us in an oasis of calm in this lovely building, with an opportunity to emphasize that despite volatility and macroeconomic uncertainty, corporate leaders must continue to keep one eye on the horizon. They must focus both on extracting long-term value and on building an economy and a financial system fit for the 21st century. We feel this is inevitable, it's going to happen, we want to see it happen the right way. So we have 2, I think, very exciting days ahead of us, and to begin this discussion, it's now my pleasure to introduce you to one of the leading advocates for the creation of a more sustainable global economy. He is the Chief Executive Officer of the World Business Council for Sustainable Development, Mr. Peter Bakker. Thank you very much.
Good morning. Thank you, Sir Roger, for your welcome. The first time I actually was optimistic that Paris could be magic was in Paris about a year ago when the first Business and Climate Summit was held. The united voice of business on the need to take climate action, the need to have a price on carbon was impressive. And obviously, with hindsight, we can now see that magic has happened and the COP21 has given us the Paris Agreement. So today and here, we no longer need to talk about why are we here or what are we trying to achieve. We're going to talk about how do we do it and how do we do it at speed and at scale. And that's going to be the focus of the second Business and Climate Summit that is now kicking off. Action since Paris is already impressive. Later today, the We Mean Business Coalition will launch the Business Determined Contributions, the parallel to the National Determined Contributions, in which 5 global business initiatives have been highlighted. Science-based targets, RE100, EP100, zero deforestation, and the low carbon technology partnerships. And combined, these 5 initiatives can reduce global emissions by more than 10 billion metric tons of emissions, more than China is emitting combined. As impressive as this number may sound, it does not yet get us on the 2 degrees trajectory, let alone the 1.5 degree. So we need to do more. And that's why hopefully all of you have come today. We have to be bold. We have to go faster. We have to involve more companies in this incredible movement that the world needs. So to those of you in business who are already taking action, keep going, do more. To those of you who are for the first time in this room, please get involved. It's not too late. You can still lead the transformation in your industry. We need to, as Sir Roger said, include the finance community. We need to look at reporting. The Task Force for Climate-Related Financial Disclosures is a key lever in this. And we need to work together with governments. The 2 champions from the Paris Agreement, Laurence Toubiana and Hakima El Haiti, need all our support. So if nothing else, the Paris Agreement has made the move to a low-carbon society irresistible, irreversible, and it's going to happen. So get on the bus. Let me start today off by introducing the Secretary General, who's been kind enough, Mr. Ban Ki-moon, to send us a short video message.
Excellencies, distinguished representatives of the private sector, ladies and gentlemen, I'm pleased to address the 2016 Business and Climate Summit. This meeting is another sign of the momentum behind the climate action as a driver of business success and economic growth. The signing of the historic Paris Agreement and the adoption of the Sustainable Development Goals have created more opportunities than ever. It's time to turn our aspirations into urgent implementation. I have called on all nations to ratify the Paris Agreement for a rapid entry into force before the end of this year. To meet our goals, we need 100% participation from businesses around the world. Through initiatives such as the UN Global Compact, many leading companies are taking on the challenge of pricing carbon, setting targets, and building resilience. I urge all of you to champion these efforts. Your leadership is essential to building a sustainable future. Thank you.
Let me introduce the first speaker to you, an old friend of all of us, initiator of the Carbon Pricing Leadership Coalition, and now the CEO of Sustainable Energy for All, Madam Rachel Kyte. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Peter. Ministers, delegates, ladies and gentlemen, friends, Europeans. It's It is a real privilege for me to serve the Secretary General as his Special Representative for Sustainable Energy. He staked his legacy, he staked his leadership as Secretary General on our success, collective success last year at the SDG Summit and in Paris. And then in April, as so many countries came forward to sign the Paris Agreement, so he said that this was our new covenant for the future. We're here today because we have to turn the Sustainable Development Goals in the context of Paris from words, from signatures, from ratification processes into reality in people's lives. That will test our leadership, ladies and gentlemen. As leaders, we will need to be able to keep, as has already been said, a close eye, not only on the short term, but on that distant point on the horizon to which we all agreed that we would arrive. As we lead people, as we lead our businesses, as we lead coalitions and partnerships to that point on the horizon, so we have to be able to express this as a future to have hope in, and not a future to be afraid of. To be able to do that, we have to be able to imagine what that future will look like. And so here in this hall, with William Pitt and others all around, I want you to imagine what success for us looks like. I'm going to take you to 2024, before 2030, when so many things we believe should have happened. In 2024, what would success look like at the end of a decade of sustainable energy for all? So we could be in Africa, we could be somewhere in Central West Africa, and it would be dusk, and the sun has come down, and you look around and you see every building with light. You see shops working, you see people still working, you see kids going home knowing that they will be able to study. There is a clinic, not some rinky-dink clinic, but a full-service clinic. And in that clinic, with the lights on, there are nurses trained in their own country, working in their own country, not part of an exodus of talent. And they are working with the equipment and with the sure knowledge that they can use their talent and their skill to save people's lives. There is a woman standing there remembering 15 years ago when she trained, and she would have to hold a torch between her teeth in order to save her patient's life. And now she can relax because the trainee that she's training is in a clinic, and there is no fear. No fear that the lights will go out, no fear that the autoclave will fail, no fear that her patient will die on the table. And then we can go to Southeast Asia. You come out of the door in the morning, ready to go to work. You breathe in, and it doesn't hurt. You breathe in, and you get ready for your 20-minute commute to work. Not the 2.5 hours it used to take you when you were training. And you know that back in the village, your mother's life is different because she doesn't have to spend 5 hours every day going to fetch something to cook with. 5 hours that are not valued, 5 hours that are just given away, 5 hours that mean that she can't be productive within that community. Your sister works in a passive building for a company that is making the components in the picks and shovels value chain of the renewable energy industry. And you have a job adding real value in financial services to an economy that has put energy productivity at its very heart. And then it's 2024 and we're here in London. Brexit, it hurt. It hurt many people. It hurt many people across the UK and across Europe. But somehow we muddled our way through, and London is still a centre of innovation, of financial strength, and of forward-looking, outward-looking creativity. And you are at the Institute of Directors, in that beautiful room on the first floor. And it is a meeting of energy services companies and energy companies. And in that meeting room, you look around and you see a diversity a diversity of ethnicity. You see at least 50% women, and you think how much the energy services industry, how much the energy sector has changed in the last 15 years. Because 15 years ago, when you were starting out, you were the only woman in the room. Because if we are going to manage this industry through a transition, the like of which we have never seen before, we will need different people in the room answering different questions and coming up with different answers. And we will need to understand the risks and the opportunity in the round. If we can imagine that world, ladies and gentlemen, we can build it. And that is the challenge for everyone in this room today, because we believe, and we have to bring everybody else with us, and we have no time. So it's 2016, that was 2024, and somehow we have to get to there from here. I have three things when I look at the energy transition that I wish for you all to think about and to adopt in our strategy going forward. First of all, we have to adopt an energy efficiency first approach. Second, we will have to put access at the heart of the agenda, because we cannot leave anyone behind. And third, we will have to have coherent policy, and we will have to give renewables the level playing field that we need for them to take up a much greater strain of our energy system in as quick a time as possible. Energy efficiency first. According to IEA's World Energy Outlook, energy efficiency could account for approximately 40% of total abatement of greenhouse gas emissions by 2050. To not put efficiency first as we think through integrated energy plans will simply be to cut off our nose to spite our face. To take an aggressive look at efficiency requires a total government approach, a total government commitment to energy productivity, and by realising savings, forcing business to up its game, even the least developed country can exploit the easiest, cheapest energy source available to them. For business, for investors, focusing on energy productivity, asking the question, recalibrates your focus from energy conservation towards how energy can best be utilised to maximise not only your bottom lines, but societal, environmental and economic prosperity. Essentially, energy productivity is about growth and development. It's about doing more with less. And we need to do more with less. The Climate Group has just launched EE100, a partner initiative to EP100, an initiative that showcases the world's most influential businesses committed to doubling their energy productivity. If you're a business leader in this room and you haven't joined EE100 yet, my question to you is, why wouldn't you? Second, with an energy efficiency first, even for the most developing country, then our transition planning also has to put access at the heart of our approach. We know who the 1.1 billion are who do not yet benefit from the progress made in electrification. We know who they are and where they are. We know where progress is already happening. These are the fast-moving countries. And we can see where progress still needs to be made. This is just electrification. Underneath these maps are 3 billion people who don't yet have access to clean cooking, who rely on wood, coal, charcoal or animal waste for cooking and heating. That is the female face of the dilemma we look at. But just in case any of you are too comfortable, when I talk about access, I'm not just talking about those women. I'm talking about the family in Lancashire, in this country, or the family in a small town in northern Belgium, or the family in the suburbs of Paris who does not have access to reliable heating and cooking and light because it is simply beyond their economic means. There is energy poverty in this continent, right here today, in the United States. This is a global issue. So, the answers are at hand, from Bangladesh to India, to Kenya to Tanzania, and indeed to the communities in East London, just down the road. There is incredible business innovation happening as we speak. and the price of renewables has plummeted. And those business models with access to renewable energy offer the opportunity to close the access gap quickly, cleanly, and affordably. Distributed energy as a solution can be opened up, and together with improvements in grid and grid-connected energy supply, can offer the chance to close that access gap while the energy system is being transformed. And then third, policy is an accelerant for the finance that needs to flow. For renewables to be a bigger and bigger part of the energy mix quickly, the playing field needs to be truly level. Put the price on carbon and do so rapidly. End subsidies on fossil fuels. And for G7 and OECD countries that are moving in the wrong direction since Paris, this is something of some urgency. Set stable and predictable investment climates, deal with the uncertainty of the regulation of distributed power alongside grids, improve institutions who manage our grids, and make clear the performance standards on efficiency in buildings, appliances, and vehicles to begin with. Set that level playing field and you will be rewarded. That is the evidence from Chile to Morocco to South Africa to UAE and elsewhere. For that to happen, the dialogue between business and government needs to be even further strengthened after the success that you had last year. Governments agreed to the ambition in Paris because they believed that you could help deliver it. You have to help them believe that you have the solutions now if the level playing field is created. Sustainable energy for all, well, we work to support leaders, including any of you, that want to lead and want to lead quickly. We will broker the new conversations, the partnerships, and unlock the finance that is needed to drive action quickly. We believe that we can get to below a 2 degrees pathway and lift people out of poverty at the same time. To do that, we will marshal the evidence and benchmark progress. We will amplify the voices of those who too often are left out of the story and whose lives must be transformed in this transition, and we will tell your stories. We are a global platform. Our only goal is to lift you up and to tell the story of your success. So, as Peter said, no matter what you are already doing, whatever action you have already taken, this is the time to double down. This is the time to dig deeper, because the direction of travel is clear. I want you to ask yourself, how can my company, my boardroom, my team, how can we go further, faster, to the future that we all want? I'm asking you this because we cannot leave anyone behind. And today, in this city, in this country, we must understand that to leave people behind will be to create an unstable economy going forward. The Charter of the United Nations begins with these words: "We, the peoples of the United Nations, determined." It's we, the peoples, not just we, the 1%, not just those reached by the grid, not just those who can put 50 pence in the meter. For all is the biggest business opportunity of our time. For all is an opportunity to be able to balance risk, find the reward, and meet people's needs. For all means no business as usual, not for you, not for multilateral development banks, not for financiers, not for civil society, not for parliaments, not for anyone. We the peoples know that they want action right now. We the peoples want us to commit to an energy transition which is just. For all can, because of the advances in technology, be an energy transition that is clean, that is affordable, and for all was the justice that people sought in Paris. For all is an extraordinary opportunity for your innovation and your creativity. For all means that together we can and must go further, faster. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rachel. A brilliant mix of passion, storytelling, facts, clear task for all of us. The forms to sign up to EE100 are outside the door. This is just a mix, I think, that we're going to need to get the Paris Agreement implemented at scale and the speed it needs. And let me therefore turn over to the next speaker. If I think about why the COP21 in Paris became the success it did, is firstly, of course, brilliant French diplomacy keeping everybody together. But secondly, the opening of this event to the non-state actors, business and cities. And therefore, it gives me great pleasure, and it's an honor to introduce Minister Madame Ségolène Royal, the Minister of Environment, Energy, Marine Affairs, but first and foremost, the President of COP21. Madam Minister.
Messieurs les présidents, Madame l'ambassadrice, dear participants, good morning. This summit is taking place at a rather peculiar moment for the United Kingdom, and I would only like to stress that climate ignores frontiers. And so don't worry, I will not touch upon any contentious topics, and let's go straight to the issues at hand. 3 points. First of all, let's make sure the Paris Agreement on climate comes rapidly into force. The Paris Conference was an historical event. The signing ceremony in New York on 22 April showed that the momentum did not abate. With some 175 signatures on the first day of signing, this was unprecedented. And as President of COP21, I want an acceleration of ratification before the end of the year to get 55 countries and 55% of emissions to get the Paris Agreement in force before COP22. I know it's difficult, but we can. 20 countries have ratified so far. France did so on 9 June. The European Union has also set itself in motion. The European Parliament will examine a decision proposal of the European Commission for ratification, and our aim is for the Council of Ministers to adopt it before COP21 in Marrakesh. Second point, we need to set a price for carbon. I remember the last Climate and Business Summit in May last year in Paris to prepare for COP21. Many of you were present. I heard for the first time private sector companies demanding a price for carbon in order to strengthen their investment in the low carbon economy and renewable energy. That was very new. In Paris, in July last year, more than 2,000 scientists from all over the world demonstrated with irrefutable evidence that climate change was a worsening reality and that there is no room for doubt. For the business sector that relies on certainty, here is a certainty. And here is another certainty: inaction is more costly than doing nothing. Things have moved on since last year. In COP21 in December, during the Focus Business event with Ban Ki-moon, John Kerry, and over 100 decision makers and investors, some of whom are with us today, we again called for a carbon pricing. The Carbon Leadership Coalition, which I co-chair, promotes carbon pricing worldwide. 26 governments, 90 companies are now part of this coalition. In April, in Washington, we set ourselves a target, which we reaffirmed at our meeting in June in Paris. 12% of carbon emissions are now covered by a carbon pricing mechanism. We set ourselves the goal to double that coverage in 2020 and double it again by 2050, so that half of world emissions are covered. On the 10th of June, at the Business Dialogue in Paris, hosted by French President, CEOs and ministers agreed on the importance and urgency of the implementation of carbon pricing mechanisms that are balanced, transparent, and flexible. Nobel Prize economist Jean Tirole provided a contribution for our business dialogue advocating for a universal price of carbon. It is difficult at this current stage to have a universal carbon price, so the idea of a price window between a bottom price and a higher price was raised. We know it is not easy for companies to integrate the long-term climate cost, which is why we need a carbon price, to give companies the ability to manage the long-term cost and give them an incentive to invest. What has France done in this field? As France was hosting COP21, we were dedicated to offering our solutions. Last August, the French Parliament adopted a law on energy transition for green growth, which I promoted as Minister of Environment and Energy. First of all, I introduced the concept of transparency into investor portfolios, Article 173 of the bill. I decided that specific provisions on transparency should be included in the law. Large investors now have to explain their carbon footprint, the exposure of their assets, the measurement of the greenhouse gas emission associated with those assets, and their contribution to limiting global warming and to the energy and ecological transition. Many companies, some of which are present here, for example, Engie, with Gérard Mestrallet, already do such reporting because they are aware that climate change is a risk, but also an opportunity, is not only a risk, but also an opportunity to be among the first to drive the inevitable transition toward the low-carbon economy. I call upon the entire investment community to undertake such reporting. Secondly, I have also made some progress on carbon price. France set a carbon price for itself. It will reach 56 euros by 2020 and 100 euros by 2030. This increase in taxation is offset by lower taxes for products and revenues that contribute to the energy transition. We have also decided to instate a floor price for carbon in the electricity sector, which will be introduced in our next budget bill in order to discourage production of electricity from coal. This price, which will be set at 30 euros a ton, will complement the ETS price of carbon. The carbon price setting at the national level is in addition to what we are doing with our carbon market at European level. To meet our target, our European target of 40% reduction in greenhouse gas emission by 2030, we are relying partly on ETS, the emission trading system. The challenge is to drive the price per ton of CO2, which is currently too low at less than 8 euros per ton today. This is why I have proposed the introduction of a price corridor at European level to drive upward the European price of carbon. And Gérard Mestrallet, I asked to prepare a report on these topics we'll deliver tomorrow to you. This is also why I have proposed to my European colleagues at the Ministers' Council 10 days ago to also apply a floor price on carbon for the electricity sector as early as next year. So, to conclude, This Business and Climate Summit will show that we have everything to gain by strengthening the dialogue between public authorities and economic decision makers. We must continue on this path and collectively commit to involve business and civil society as a whole in the development of climate policy. So let me call on you to do the following. First, internalize a price of carbon that is sufficiently high to act as an incentive for sound low-carbon decisions. Second, join the Carbon Pricing Leadership Coalition and be at the forefront of the transition toward a low-carbon economy. Thirdly, for investors, reorient your funds so that they can become eligible to the label which I have put in place as president of COP21, called Positive Transition for Climate. This certification, created in December 2015, is the first official green finance label aims at selecting with stringent rules the greenest funds. Finally, all investors are invited to apply for the Best Climate Reporting Prize, which I will award next autumn during COP22. This competition was open on 10 June at the last Business Dialogue, and all relevant information on participation can be found on the COP21 website. Let me finish with a quote by Winston Churchill. A pessimist sees the difficulty in every opportunity. An optimist sees the opportunities in every difficulty. Let us unshakable optimists when it comes to the fight against climate change. So many opportunities. Thanks to all of you.